We live in a world where we are constantly being judged, we are constantly being assessed, and we are constantly doing our own means of evaluation. Whether it's the shows that we watch, like Dancing with the Stars, America's Got Talent, Chopped, Iron Chef, The Voice, there is some means of evaluative measure that is going on to kind of determine what is the best product for us, what is the best material for us, what is the best show for us, who the greatest singer is, who the greatest athlete is of all time. People are obsessed with assessing. And these next couple of weeks, we're going to be looking at evaluations, and we are going to be addressing exactly how do you make a proper evaluation and how do you determine what exactly is proper, is effective, is good, is beneficial. Because in our day-to-day lives, we do that all the time. We are trying to figure out what products to buy, where to go to eat, where to travel, what shows to watch, what movies are good for the type of things that we're interested in. But when you decide, or if you decide that you want to write an evaluative argument, you must make sure that you are properly entering an evaluative discussion. So first and foremost, there are 4 particular ways you enter an evaluative conversation. You are either 1, making an assessment about quality, 2, challenging a judgment or critique, 3, establishing a ranking or comparison, or 4, examining criteria that might be used to make evaluative judgments. And so I'm going to kind of break each one of these down so you guys have an idea of how each one works. So when we make judgments about quality, something that we do on a day-to-day basis, maybe minute to minute, we might wake up and we might say, should I wear this shirt today? Should I wear this shirt? Should I go eat here? Should I go eat there? But when we go into deeper things, when people ask us for certain pieces of advice, we take our evaluations and we apply them to the situation. So say, for example, we're looking at the movie Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and someone said, would you see this movie again? Is it the best movie of 2015? And based on your evaluation, you might say, well, I love nostalgia, the storyline was awesome, and the characters are incredible. So you might evaluate and you might tell them that Star Wars: The Force Awakens, new and unique characters intertwined with fan nostalgia and Abrams' imaginative direction not only cemented the film as the best in the series, but additionally the best movie of 2015. So when we make evaluations about judgments, we're usually establishing some sort of idea as to what makes something good, what makes something effective. You have to remember that there are certain things that will not enter an evaluation discussion, however, if you are simply giving me facts or things that cannot be debated. So, for instance, if you tell me that Star Wars: The Force Awakens is part of the Star Wars series, or that Star Wars: The Force Awakens has made over $1.5 billion, those are both facts. Those are things that cannot be argued. However, when you are building your criteria as to why this potentially might be the best movie of the year or the greatest movie in the Star Wars series, you can use those as criteria, and we're going to get into criteria in a little bit. Evaluations typically use terms that indicate value or rank, so something is good or bad, it's effective or ineffective, the best or worst, competent or incompetent, or successful or unsuccessful. So remember, when you choose a topic for an evaluation, write about something on which others regularly ask your opinion or advice, something that you know relatively well, something that you can sort of talk about and you can give sort of an assessment that is objective, but also detailed enough and enforced enough with your own background and knowledge. When you challenge a judgment or critique, you are essentially providing a counter argument to someone else's evaluative argument. So if I went and told you that I thought Star Wars was the greatest movie of the year, you might counter with that and you might say, I thought it was good, but here are a few things that are potentially wrong with it, which I would disagree in saying that it is the best movie of the year. In certain cases, for like fast food commercials, for example, there are certain people who might believe that sex sells. And so they might argue that many machismo-based fast food franchises believe in this sort of credo. However, the reality is that many of their advertisements use sexuality to not only advertise their burgers, but the women involved as well. So here you might make the challenge to the original evaluation that sex sells is a way to promote certain ideas, but with the progressive day and age we live in, some people might see this and be turned off to the notion that many of the people involved in this sort of commercial, especially women, are sort of devalued or dehumanized in a certain way. Remember that when you are challenging a particular evaluation, that you want to make sure you clearly establish what the initial evaluation is before you come in with your transitory sort of challenge. So in this case, the original argument might be that after watching her take over the stage at concerts, even the Super Bowl, most fans and viewers would describe Beyonce as a strong, beautiful, independent woman with an extremely dominating presence. However, there is one factor that audiences forget to look at or listen to: her lyrics. Like many performers, Beyonce dedicates most of her music to the topic of love and relationships, now more specifically to her marriage with Jay-Z. Although Beyonce puts on the persona of a strong, independent woman, her lyrics in various songs would say otherwise. So here you present the initial evaluation that suggests that Beyonce is a strong, independent woman, but then you challenge it by observing her own lyrics where she is on different tracks with Jay-Z, where she kind of takes a back seat to his sort of alpha male sort of role. And you can use lyrics, you can use direct information or observations from her songs to help support that claim. When we construct ranking or comparisons, this is a type of evaluation where you're essentially making lists based on a criteria of ideas that would kind of range for a few different topics to suggest these are the best of this particular topic based on these particular areas of observation that I'm going to highlight for you. So, for example, Americans are focusing on their health more than ever, and 3 shows that document the journey and struggles of those endeavors are The Biggest Loser, Extreme Makeover, and Fit to Fat to Fit. So if I'm establishing a ranking or comparison about the best weight loss shows, I might look at these 3 shows and build my criteria off of these specific questions. How do these shows document the struggles of weight loss? What kinds of experts' testimony and insight do they provide? In what ways are the narratives or characters developed? And are certain bits of information omitted, and are those pieces significant? When we look at ranking or comparisons, if you are a fan of sports, every week ESPN or Sports Illustrated will release the top 10 rankings or power rankings of different teams based on what they see each team provide. So based on the type of players they have, based on the type of personnel, based on their winning streak, etc. Those are the criteria that they would use in order to determine who would be ranked number 1 opposed to who would be ranked last. And then lastly, when we explore criteria in making evaluative judgments, essentially when we look at criteria now, especially when trying to assess similar sorts of topics, we would then look to see what has changed based on the culture, based on the time frame. So for example, if we're looking at modern technology that observes the type of space platform that people use to store or back up their materials. You know, when I was growing up, we had floppy disks, and on those particular things, you could barely hold anything. Now you have the cloud, which is this essential unlimited space for you to back up as much information as possible. So what are some things that you might consider when evaluating criteria? You might look at the audience, the experience. You think of technology, and you think of who technology used to be available to. 20, 30, 40 years ago, you had to be very, very wealthy in order to acquire certain types of technology. Excuse me, especially a computer. But now, everybody and their grandma has a smartphone in the palm of their hand. You might look at the culture or the structure and the expectations or the society itself. These are all factors that would indicate what you can do in order to determine which evaluative criteria are still valid today. So remember, when you enter an evaluative conversation, you are doing one of 4 things. You are either making a judgment about quality, you are challenging a particular judgment about quality, you are establishing a ranking or comparison, or you are looking at evaluative criteria that are used to make certain assessments. These are some things we'll talk about more in depth with the slides going forward, but this will be the second option you can choose for your first major writing assignment, either an analysis essay or an evaluative essay.